Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the BeDifferential Podcast. I'm your host, Ava Gregory, and this week we are joined by Erin Vogel, the CEO and founder of AE Victory Racing. Welcome to this week's episode.
Hi, Ava. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to getting into some of your insights and experiences in the roles and just career that you've had. But before we really get into it, why don't you tell the listeners just a little about yourself so they can kind of know who we're talking to?
Absolutely. I am a race car driver and a team owner. As of the last year or so, I founded AE Victory Racing in 2023. So I guess it's been more like 18 months that we've actually been operating as a team. I raced an SRO for 3 years. I was in GT4 America for 1 year and then with GT World Challenge, which is the GT3 cars, for 2 seasons. And I was the first woman to win a race in GT World Challenge globally in my class. Many other women have come and done amazing things and set records after me. But that was kind of my crowning achievement in GT World Challenge back in 2021.
Just a small little resume to begin the episode with. I love it. So many amazing feats and accolades already, and I'm just really, really excited to get into it. Erin, take us back. When did you get introduced to motorsport, automotive? Was this something you grew up in? Was it something you found later? Tell us about it.
Really, if we're truthful about it, it's something I found later.
Okay.
I started doing HPDE, so just track day events in 2008, I think. So I was 25. But I did grow up around a lot of stories about racing, but not car racing, not road track racing. My dad and his dad and brother built offshore power boats when they were in their teens. That was my grandpa wanted them to learn how to build motors and build things. And they went
That's
racing.
so cool.
Yeah. And my dad's story was similar to mine. He started, racing these family boats and then kind of loved it. And, maybe his dad didn't want to do it anymore. So he went on and was a navigator for a number of professional teams and raced all over the world and won a world championship with a female team owner and driver. So I grew up with stories of Betty Cook, and she was an older woman. She was the grandmother of offshore powerboat racing. And I grew up with a strong mom too. She drove snowcats. I was around a lot of good examples of women doing things like this. But eventually my brother got his driver's license. He wanted to go to the racetrack. And so we all kind of started going as a family just because that's how our family is. So that was back in 2008. And I just got bit by the bug there.
That's amazing. I love it so much, especially to have an icon like Betty Cook and just growing up in your foundational years to be able to see. That's amazing. Honestly, I live in Georgia, and I really never thought about like boat racing as a thing until more recently, just because I was never in places where it was a common thing, and I am just absolutely fascinated. And to be fair, that is a motorsport, so I might need to find some powerboat racers to come on.
Seriously. And there's so many different types. I don't know a whole lot about it, but like there's the, really fast offshore powerboats. There's some really fast stuff that they do in lakes. Like there's some people out there doing crazy, wild, fun, fast, like cool stuff in boats. And I don't know how many women are in it. We should find out.
We should. This is homework we're all taking away now. Perfect. Well, good. So, Erin, okay, you started a little later in life, especially for this industry, right? Most people start, competing at 5 and so on. How did you start really developing what you've now built for AE Victory Racing? And how do you think maybe coming into it later in life shaped how you approach the perspectives you see?
It shaped it so much, honestly. I knew, because I was already racing with kids who were 10 years younger than me, right? Who had just gotten their driver's license. So I knew that I was going to be behind the curve a little bit. I was going to have to work really hard. And honestly, when I started, I didn't think I was really ever going to go racing. But then I got promoted to being an instructor in HPDE. And I went, well, I don't feel like I know much yet myself. How am I going to teach people? And so I thought, well, where can I go to learn more skills? So I started racing, and I thought, oh, it'll just be for fun. I don't really care how I do. I am a competitive person. I just am the kind of competitive person that, like, if I don't think I can do well, I'm going to act like it doesn't matter to me. what the result is. But and then from there, I just kind of started seeing it as this platform, like ever since I was a kid. And because I had those examples growing up, I had never thought that women couldn't do things because they were women. And then I started hearing that as I went out into the world and got older. And so from the time that I was a little girl, I wanted to be involved in something that was promoting women or showing women that they could be in those spaces no matter what other people thought. And so I started to see motorsports early on as a place where I could do that, where I could be a role model and encouraging other women to do that. And even in my some of my early racing days, we convinced some women that were there driving, but not, we're also like, I don't think I want to go racing. We convinced them to come do a racer clinic. And we had this whole group of women, and so it's just, for me, from the very beginning, I've just wanted to inspire people to reach a little bit further than they think they can, because I know they can do it. I just want them to know they can do it.
I love that so much. And my gosh, you've made a mark. I mean, being the first woman to win at the level of SRO that you did in your class is insane. And I think that that's something that you set the standard. You said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to accomplish this. What does that mean to you to really, somewhat be an earlier portion of your driving career, be able to have that accolade and then say, I came here, I did what I wanted to do? What did that mean to you?
It was the culmination of everything. It was exactly what I had hoped would happen. And I'll be honest, that win wasn't really my win. I was doing okay in that race. It was, one of those fluke things that happens in racing. Sometimes our pit crew did an incredible pit stop when Michael got in the car and put us way out in the lead. And from there on, he just held it. And so it was really their win and his win, but I was there. I was along for the ride. And then from there, like, the momentum kind of picked up and we had a lot of other podiums, and I won a pole position, I think, like at the next race. And so it gave me a lot of confidence, but it gave everyone around me so much confidence. And, there were women that were racing in GT4, Samantha Tan at the time. And I think they saw it and went, oh, I can do that too. And I was like, yes, it was exactly what I wanted to have happen, was to have more women say, I can do that too, and go do it. Especially women who have resources, because it is hard. It's hard to get there, but and that's what a lot of the guys are doing. And once I realized that, I was like, you know what, it's going to take some of us just saying, I'm just going to go do it. And then the next ingredient for me was like, okay, I went and did it. How do I help get more of us there? Because again, it takes resources, and I think those of us that have resources, it's to me, it feels like a responsibility to try to help others along the way as well. So it did all of those things, and that was pretty cool.
Setting such an amazing example. So let's talk about, you went from being a driver, you were competing at that level, to AE Victory Racing, you're a team owner, you're still getting behind the wheel sometimes. Let's talk about, what did that pivot look like? What was that kind of journey and transition? I'm sure that was challenging.
Definitely. When we kind of came to that impasse where, I didn't have the budget to do another season of GT World Challenge because it, ended up being so much more expensive than I had anticipated. And I was doing some grassroots stuff. I was racing at WRL in 2023, and things just kind of weren't coming together with this program that I was in. And we kind of started looking at each other, and it had always been my goal. Like, since the first time I worked with a professional team, which was a great experience, it was, they were wonderful, but there was always that little element of like, just not taking us as seriously as I felt like they took the other racers, the male racers. And I don't know how much of that was because we were afraid to take ourselves seriously because we didn't want to get hurt or we didn't want to fail, and I realized it was this catch-22, and that someone needed to provide a place where people where women could come and girls could come and feel comfortable enough to be confident and and know that they would be taken seriously. So we kind of looked at each other at that time, and I thought I'd be 45, not 38, but that I'd have more years of life experience before I tried to start my team. But I knew it was the goal, and it felt like a window was opening, not a door. It wasn't like, here it is, well, I can climb through that window. And so we did. And it was hard in the beginning, but it's been the most rewarding and wonderful thing that I've ever done. And I'm just so excited to keep building on it. and see it
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. Well, tell the listeners, for those that aren't familiar with AE Victory Racing, tell us about what series you're competing in now, what kind of cars you're running. Talk to us just a little bit about the team.
So we are running in the World Racing League, colloquially known as WRL. And it is a grassroots series that has attracted a lot of professional drivers who come and coach their gentleman drivers. And it's become a place that people really love because the racing is really good, hard racing, but it's fairly clean. And like people are not bumping into each other all the time. And it is a ton of seat time. It's like the most seat time you'll get for your money, like anywhere, I think. I mean, there's probably other endurance series that are like it. So I think it's the endurance series that are like this. And last year we started out with actually the same car that I ran in the first race I ever worked with a professional team. It was the Audi R8, 2018 Audi R8 GT4 from the 25 Hours of Thunderhill. And we kind of brought that out of mothballs. We knew it wasn't going to be the most competitive car, but it was what we had at the time. And it's what we could do with our budget in that year. So we ran that all of last season. We debuted it at the last race of 2023 and then ran it all of 2024. And then this year we knew we wanted to get into a little bit more modern equipment. So we were able to find a Toyota Supra, which has been a pretty competitive car in that series and in a lot of other series, in Pro Series as well. So the Supra GT4 is what we're running this season. And it has already given us a huge leg up. Even in the first race, when we did not have the car figured out yet, we were like in the top 10. And that was something that had been really difficult to do in the Audi. The Audi was a great car. It was a tank. It ran really well. It's naturally aspirated. It's bigger and heavier. It wasn't as competitive. It was, we needed a more modern car. And Toyota's been great to work with because they have really good support here in the US for us as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Talk to us a little bit about like the preparation that goes in. I mean, now playing a couple different roles and wearing a couple different hats between driver, between team owner, between being just a leader as it is. What's the preparation that goes into a race weekend from those various roles?
It's not that different. Okay. I mean, it's harder sometimes, but when I was a driver, it was like really, focusing on really good nutrition the week leading up. I mean, it was good nutrition all the time, but especially that week leading up, it was like, making sure you're getting really good sleep, making sure that you're getting some exercise in, but nothing that's going to wear you out too much or make you too sore. So that when you get there, you're fit, but you're not overly tired or struggling. So it's a lot of the same things as a team owner that I want to do the same things to make myself like mentally at my peak, because it's a lot to juggle mentally. Just like being on the racetrack, it's like, it doesn't really matter if you're in the car on the track or if you're in the pits. Like when racing is happening, things happen quickly. They come at you and you got to make decisions really quickly. You got to help support your crew in their decision making. And your drivers. So the preparation isn't really all that different. I think as a team owner, there's just a lot more logistics I have to worry about now than before.
Sure. I'm so sure. Well, so then I guess this is kind of a common question I ask, but as you've gone through different roles, as you've been in the industry for a while now, what is something success is defined as winning, right, in our industry, but how has your idea of success maybe evolved throughout your tenure in the career?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, winning was never like the most important thing to me, but I think that was again a concession because I just thought I didn't know if I was really capable.
Yeah.
I do think I'm capable as a team owner of leading a winning team. So it is important. And we got really close for the first time in this last race. We were leading portions of the race. And we were up in podium contention for like the vast majority of the race until we had an on-track incident that led to a mechanical failure that took us out of contention. I think we all still felt that was a successful weekend. It showed that we have the pace, we have the crew that's able to execute in the pit stops. We have all the ingredients now that can help us run up at the front. And so, in its own way, that is certainly a type of success. And our drivers are getting to the point where they're meshing really well and their average lap time is really high. So I think it's easy to feel like you're failing when you don't get that podium, but it's being able to see the progress from race to race, from year to year, and know that you're moving in the right direction still. and seeing continuous improvement. That's, I think, to me, the biggest definition of success. And knowing that people like what we're doing, that feels good. And I definitely feel that that is a type of success.
That's such an important takeaway. I think, it really is. Like, we're in an industry where things are measured by times and by podiums and by wins. And so it's hard to remember, I think, when you're going through this process and you're overcoming challenges and you're experiencing it, even if it's not a win, it's still a success and still something you can take away. So I think that's really important to remember. What do you think, as you've had a various different level of perspective in your roles, what do you think are some misconceptions about racing, about things that, whether as a fan or someone that's not deeply inundated in it, what do you think maybe they're seeing that is just not it?
God, where do I even start?
I know.
So many things. I think people don't understand the amount of time and energy it takes to get a team just to the racetrack, let alone doing all the right things at the right time, the amount of logistics that it takes. And I think a lot of people don't understand how athletic driving a race car really is, especially when you're talking about a WRL length stint, which is at a minimum an hour stint. You're going, as long as your fuel will last. And a lot of times, not at Daytona because it was really hot so much, but a lot of times you're double stinting and even triple stinting. Just like you would at, the Rolex or any of the professional endurance races. So I think people just don't understand the gargantuan task that it is to get there. I think people think, well, I drive my car to and from work every day. I could be a race car driver. It's so different. And even I was talking to a friend the other day. He was like, well, why is this suspension adjustable? And blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to explain weight transfer and all this stuff. And he went, oh my God, that's so different from driving on the street. I said, yeah, it's 180 degrees the opposite. The motivation for why we drive the way we drive on the street is influenced by the fact that we have all these people around us. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if they're paying attention. On the racetrack, everybody's on the same page, more or less.
Yeah.
So, what you're doing is totally different. And to get the most out of the car, it's totally different than when we're actually trying to get the least out of the car sometimes on the road. And so I think it's hard. It's really hard to understand what racing is like, just because you drive a car on the street. And I don't mean that to sound negative in any way. It's just, it seems like an easy comparison, I think, for people, but it's really, it could not be more night and day difference.
No, that's so valid. Even from my experience, I'm not a racing driver, not yet. Maybe one day, we'll see. But no, I'm a big air-cooled enthusiast, right? And even the difference between driving my daily as an Audi A4 to driving a 72 Karmann Ghia, the attention that you have to have, the feeling of you're constantly in a vibration, there's a different level of focus and energy that honestly is exhausting. And that's not even at a competitive level or feeling the temperatures that you're feeling in a race car or whatever it may be. So yeah, I completely agree. I think that misconception is a great one to point out, because I do think people just watch racing and don't see what is happening in your body, your different hormone levels that are shifting and pivoting, and just it's a lot. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And the heart rate data that we have now from people wearing, wearables in the car that can tell us what's going on with their body. I think it's a particularly difficult sport, I think, for a fan to engage with on a personal level, because you can't see their faces. You can't see the athletes. Like you said, the effort is so masked by the fact that even in an open cockpit car, you can only see a little bit of them, and they're strapped in so tightly that you don't see the effort. But I love that. I love the air-cooled thing too. He has an older car. God, there's just there's nothing like that, because you're so engaged with it, unlike the modern cars that do so much for us. So yeah, that's a better comparison. I think people who've driven a car like that maybe have a better sense of what it's like, that you're so much connected.
Yeah, maybe so. And I'll say, actually, I think I'm trying to think of the scheduling, but I think when this episode is released, it's going to be on a day that I begin a 700 plus mile drive in an air-cooled car. And I'm mentally preparing for that. And now I'm sitting here wait, does this make me a race car driver, basically? I'm just kidding. No, that's so funny. Well, cool. Okay, so let's.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah, so we'll go into that tangent later, but yeah, I'm driving from Pennsylvania to Georgia in a 69 Beetle, and it's going to be a whole thing. But yeah, more to come on that, more to come. But that's so funny. Well, Erin, okay, so let's talk about as well. Obviously, team owner, you have people that you're investing in, you have a team that you've built, you have personalities that you have to juggle and kind of match together. Talk to me a little bit about like networking, nuance of relationships and people management. What are some of those things that you've had to kind of face? I mean, as a team owner, but also as just someone in this industry, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so right now I'm taking a step back from driving, which is something I've been wanting to do, but now I actually have an excuse because my partner and I just found out we're pregnant. But it's super exciting. Um, and, but I didn't know if like, I just felt like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions and I wasn't really excelling anymore at driving. And I wasn't able to excel as a leader because I was splitting my time too much. So, because yes, managing the people and helping everybody work together when their brain is full of all the things that they have to do and have to think about and have to decide on, and so being able to support that at Daytona was the first race I didn't drive. And it was a great experience for me. I didn't miss the driving because it was also like 100 degrees and 90% humidity. But I didn't miss the driving because I was not out of work the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's been, even for me as a person who's been in leadership roles, my family owns a business. I manage employees there. I've been a student leader in a bunch of different types of groups, back in high school and college. But starting something from the ground up is very different. And it's a set of skills that I thought I had, and I don't as much as I thought I did. So like I have an executive coach that I'm working with to help me understand how to communicate better with people and how to get the best out of them, how to understand their strengths and what they need to feel comfortable and to feel empowered to speak up and to act. And so, yeah, I'm really trying to build a group of people who feel that way, who feel they have ownership within this team, within their role, and to work together, and then helping them, because sometimes, like you say, do clash.
Yeah.
So it's like helping, so I have to try to be the person that doesn't clash, right? And that's hard too, because we all have our little things, but I have to try to be that way. And I'm learning how to do that better so that I can help when other people butt heads a little bit. I can try to help them like, okay, well, from their point of view, it might feel like this. And, just remember that's not about you necessarily. And then, trying to like, just help people feel like, because again, things happen so fast. And so sometimes communication can feel sharp to from one person to another. And so it's like, helping everybody learn that sharp communication isn't personal. It's just, it happens sometimes because we're like moving at the speed of light, and then being able to come back afterwards and like, remember that we're all humans and that we're all a team at the end of the day, and doing a lot of things to do team building, having dinner together, making sure we sit down and have meals together. So there's a lot from like a leadership standpoint that I'm working on, because I've been on teams that, like I think kind of wait until they have people that just all work together. And I don't know how much, it's hard for me. I was a driver. I didn't get to see behind the scenes a lot. So I don't know how much was going on of that kind of stuff in the background. But just from my standpoint, I really do want it to feel and be intentional so that everybody's comfortable. I think they'll work together better if they're happy.
Yeah, I mean, nurturing relationships and finding cohesion is so challenging, and especially in an industry like this where it is very emotional, it is very competitive, it's high pace, high adrenaline, it's easy to react. And so I can only imagine it being a leader in those moments of high highs and low lows being extremely challenging. We're talking about this as things that you have to navigate and nuance with it, but I'm curious, is there a win that you took away? I mean, you said just a minute ago that you guys placed higher than you historically had been, and you guys were performing really well. But is there something maybe since you've taken on this leadership role where it was a huge like moment of fulfillment, or like, yes, we're doing the right thing. Like I'm where I'm meant to be. This is intentional and I'm feeling good about it.
I think as you were asking that, the thing that came to mind is that we did a shootout in January to find our third driver for this season. And I didn't know, I didn't do a great job of publicizing what we were doing the first year because I was so focused on just making it happen, of just getting to the track, finishing races, right? And I figured the rest could come later. I've hired a PR person now, so we're working on some of that. But when we did the shootout, I didn't know if I'd get 1 application or 100 applications. And I think we got like 22 applications, which was really great. And there was some interesting buzz around it. Like people were excited. And like I said, the number of people that said like, I love what you're doing. This is so important, was so validating. And, it was at the same time, it was hard. So it felt like a win just from that perspective. And then how well the shootout went, it went really well. I had no idea. I've never done that before. I've never even attended one. So I didn't know, we just sort of were like,
figure it out.
Yeah. What was it like when you did your shootout? And okay, well, do we want it like that? Or do we want to kind of do our own thing? But then, the thing that didn't feel like a win was I wished I could have helped all of those 22 applicants. And so it's taking more time than I want it to, but I'm trying to work on, and it's probably only going to take longer now that I'm going to have a baby in my life, but we're trying to develop some other programs as well, for the long term that will help us reach more people and just do more skill building across, the whole group of young women and not young women my age in motorsport, so that we can continue to grow the skill level of female drivers and this experience level and give them more seat time and just give them more resources in the small ways that I can.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think this industry does come with a lot of like power and networking, right? And I feel like that's a very common topic that comes up on this podcast, but it really is. I mean, maybe you didn't publicize it super well, but for people to have heard about it, to have known who to know or who to ask or find out about it, can you talk to just a little bit, whether this is the power of the network that you've had and built, if it's mentors that you've had that have kind of guided you as you've moved up, can you just speak to those a little bit?
Yeah, both have been super helpful. I do think that the network of women in motorsports has proven to be incredibly strong and much bigger than any of us realized even just a couple of years ago. And so, just I'm not super great at networking. It's another skill I'm working on, but just the people that I've been able to meet through Shift Up Now and through Women with Drive Conference, through Lynn and Cindy at WIMNA, that has been really valuable for getting other female opinions on things and just connecting with other women in the industry. And then for myself, just learning, I always kind of saw being a driver, because I was older and I didn't know how successful I could really be. I always saw it as this stepping stone to owning a team. I needed to understand how a team worked, and the easiest way for me to get my foot in the door, because I didn't have marketing skills, I didn't have some of those other things because I hadn't planned ahead like that, was to be a driver. And so I had some really great mentors, my engineer, Jim Bell, and my coach and co-driver, Michael Cooper, whom I worked with all through those SRO years. They were huge, and they understood my goals from the beginning, and they saw early on that I was willing to work hard. And so the two of them helped me understand the industry in a really big way, and understand how teams operate, at least from one side of things. So I think all of those things are so important. It's just, meeting as many people as you can so that you can hopefully find those people you really connect with, so that you can build a relationship and learn from each other. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And through building these relationships, through learning more, I'm curious as well, again, in your different roles now, what are things that inspire you and how you lead and in projects that you work on outside of being behind the wheel?
Yeah, I have a lot of varied interests. I've worn a lot of different hats in my life. I was an interior designer in my 20s before I got into working with the family business and then got into racing with them. So design is a big one for me, and travel, and those two things kind of go hand in hand. I'm a big reader. And I think all of those things inspire me to look at racing a little differently sometimes. I have a lot of relationships with people who've worked in different industries, and just hearing how they approach things is really interesting, because I do think, each industry kind of builds its habits, and then, this is how we do things. Some industries innovate more, some industries innovate less, especially in a fast-paced industry. I think we tend to just be like, well, this is how we do it. Let's just do it. We got to keep going, And so to be able to have the bandwidth now to kind of look at it differently and say, well, okay, that's great. So I see how everybody else has done it. How can I do what they're doing, but maybe put my own spin on it and see if that works better or worse? And so we're doing, and I know that we're not the only ones doing this. I think Iron Dames are doing this too, but we're doing performance and mindset coaching for our drivers. And now for some of our other team members, we're adding that in just to help them with that fast paced stuff. And how do you keep your mindset in the right place emotionally so that you can deal with all the stuff that happens in a race? So, we're trying to look at things a little differently, and how can we make ourselves unique, but how can we also maybe prove that some of this stuff is important and it works and it's worth the time, energy, and cost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned a few different things. One, I have huge respect for anyone that pivots their career. I think that is an amazing feat to be able to take on and tackle and say, listen, I'm just going to try something else and see how it goes. And so I have huge respect for coming from design to now what you're doing. And you're right. I mean, sharing perspectives, building the network, having a different consideration of you might be looking at something differently is so impactful. And especially when you're talking about growing and building. So what do you think the future holds for AE Victory Racing? What are things that you're looking forward to accomplishing or building in the meantime?
Well, really hoping to keep building on this momentum from Daytona, and hopefully getting some podiums here this season. By the end of the season, I think we have a really strong driver lineup that's going to, be the right combination of people to help get us there. It's a lot, it's, make your own luck, but also, there's an element of that luck that you can't make and you just have to hope for the best. So there's a little bit of that, but more long-term, I would really like to try maybe doing a 2-car program still at WRL next season. So have 1 car that is kind of the same group of drivers for consistency's sake, and build on this season, next season. And then bring in some new drivers and start a 2nd car and do kind of more driver development there. And then maybe take that 2nd season of drivers, and I need to figure out how I'm going to have the budget to do this, but my goal is really to take those drivers once they've had a couple seasons together and move them up to SRO and start
a feeder series, honestly. Yeah.
Yes. I want to create this kind of development place where we can be running WRL. And it's a lot logistically, I don't know, again, but it was a lot logistically just to start the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, if I could do that, I could probably do this too. But it's like, I'd love to have the 2 programs and the one feeding into the other. And then, from there, who knows, I'd like to keep pushing upward and pushing forward and seeing where we can get, where we can take the team and be successful and even just be there. Sometimes just being there is a success in and of itself. I don't remember what I was listening to yesterday, but they were talking about that sometimes just showing up is like a success in itself, because again, there's so many people that don't know if they can or should. And just being able to say, well, I don't care, I will, is really powerful and strong. So that's the goal, is to just keep doing that as many places as we can until other people are like, oh, I like that. Yeah, we could do that too. So
that's awesome. Definitely making an impact already. Erin, what do you think for folks that are coming in, whether it's women, whether it's younger generations, whomever it may be, coming in as either a driver or just more interested in getting involved in motorsports professionally? What is a piece of advice you would have for them as starting out?
Oh, there's so many things too. I think
I just keep asking these questions on the spot. I'm like,
it's just, I know my answers, but it's like there's so many other things too. I think my usual answer to this question is just not to be afraid to ask questions. I think there were opportunities I missed out on in my earlier days because I was afraid to speak up and ask questions. So I guess it's like confidence too is important. And it's hard to have confidence when you don't feel like you don't know what you're doing. But the biggest thing I learned is that when I don't know what I'm doing, asking questions doesn't make me look stupid. It makes me look interested. And people like that. They like to know that you're interested. If you come in with an attitude and you don't ask questions, even if you don't think you know everything, you might look like you think you know everything. And people aren't as interested in that. They want to engage. They want to share. And they want to feel important. If you ask them questions, they're going to feel important and they're more likely to give you the information you need. It's this whole psychological thing that happens with humans, right? And so I think not being afraid to speak up and ask questions, and not being afraid to ask for what you need. And that's a tough one, especially when you feel, especially if you're in a scholarship type situation, you feel like, well, I'm afraid to say anything because what if that makes me too difficult and, then they're not going to want me here. They're going to want somebody that's easier to deal with. But if you know that your performance hinges on that thing, ask for it but be ready to explain why. I need this so that I can blah blah blah. And I think those 3 things are kind of related. It's like, ask questions so you look curious and learn more. Ask for what you need so you can perform at your best. And again, both of those things take confidence. So those would be my big three.
No, I think those are great takeaways. Your comment about if you don't ask a question, you might not look interested, or asking a question doesn't make you look stupid, it makes you look, is so important. And I think that for a long time, like I never had issues asking questions, but I was always worried about like seeming like I didn't know what I was talking about. And it's such a good point of what you're saying of like, this is showing someone your interest level. This is showing someone that you're committed to learning more and being engaged in it, and being willing to adapt and develop what your knowledge base is. So I think that is such a huge takeaway that any listener right now should definitely lean on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like, even if you are an expert in your subject, like the world is always changing. There's always more to learn and figure out, as we have better technologies and as we have better ways to access things and do things. So yeah, I think that's the best attitude no matter what, whether you're in racing or anything else.
Yeah, that could be applied anywhere. Well done. Well, good. Well, Erin, as we're closing out here, tell us just where can the listeners follow along? Where can they keep up with AE Victory Racing? Tell us what we should be on the lookout for.
So probably our most prolific place right now is Instagram at AE Victory Racing. There's some periods and dashes in there, but if you search AE Victory Racing will come up. We're trying to add more content there and do some more stuff there. So we're working on growing all of this stuff. We're doing some website updates, but our website is aevictoryracing.com, and that will be growing here this year as well. So those are probably the two best places. We're on LinkedIn a little bit as well. And we, with our new PR manager, she is getting us out there for TV spots and news spots. So again, we'll be sharing those on social media and LinkedIn for people to see and just, it's like this, like getting this, every person we get to speak with, we get asked different questions or different questions in different ways. And so, as we learn and grow, all these interviews will continue to have cool new information in them. So we'll be sharing those as much as we can as well.
Well, fabulous. Can't wait to see the increase in visibility and more to come from AE Victory Racing. We'll have all the details in the description below so you guys can find them with ease. No problem there. Erin, thank you so much for taking just a minute, just a short little time out of your week to sit down with us and talk through what AE Victory Racing is doing next and some insights into your career. Listeners, thank you for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week. Bye.